You slip on a wet step, hear a crack, and in one horrible second, your whole day becomes a medical problem. Not a normal problem, not a maybe I can walk this off problem, a real one. But even then, you are surrounded by invisible help. You might have a phone in your pocket, roads nearby, an ambulance that can find you, an x-ray machine waiting somewhere, a doctor who has seen this exact injury before, painkillers, clean bandages, metal screws, antibiotics, a cast, a follow-up appointment, maybe even a friend who can bring you soup and make fun of the way you try to hop to the bathroom. Now remove all of that. No phone, no ambulance, no x-ray, no hospital, no clean operating room, no pharmacy, no written instructions. And you are not lying on a sidewalk outside an apartment building. You are on uneven ground, maybe far from camp, with cold air coming in, flies starting to notice you, and one of your legs pointing in a direction legs do not usually negotiate with. That is the Stone Age version of a broken bone. And at first, the answer seems obvious. You died. That is probably what many people assume. And honestly, sometimes that would have been true. A broken bone in deep prehistory could be deadly. Not because ancient people were weak, and not because they were foolish, but because a fracture is not just a crack in a skeleton, it can become bleeding, shock, infection, thirst, hunger, exposure, and the simple, terrible fact that the group may need to move while you cannot. But here's the strange part. Some prehistoric bones healed. Not perfectly, not magically, not always, but enough that archaeologists can sometimes look at ancient skeletons and see the thickened, repaired places where a living body had time to rebuild itself after injury. And time is the important word, because a broken bone does not heal in one dramatic afternoon beside a campfire. It takes days for the swelling and pain to settle, weeks for early repair, months for stronger remodeling. During that time, the injured person still needs water, food, warmth, protection, a place to sleep, someone to notice if the wound smells wrong, if fever comes, if the limb turns dark, if the pain gets worse instead of better. So the real question is not only what happened if you broke a bone in the Stone Age. The real question is who carried you through the days after. Picture a small group moving through a rough landscape. There are no straight sidewalks, no handrails, no padded floors, no warning signs, politely telling you that the rocks are slippery. There is mud, loose stone, tree roots, animal burrows, riverbanks, cliffs, ice, darkness, panic, and the occasional large animal that does not care about your long-term mobility. Someone jumps down from a ledge and lands badly. Someone falls while carrying meat. Someone twists under the weight of wood. Someone gets kicked by a struggling animal. Someone is hit during a conflict. Someone's arm snaps while trying to break a fall. The first sound might be the crack itself, then a shout, then everyone looking. If it is a finger, a wrist, a rib, that is bad, painful, limiting, maybe dangerous. But if it is a thigh bone, a lower leg, the pelvis, or a compound fracture where bone tears through skin, the entire scene changes. Pain arrives first, but pain is only the messenger. A broken femur can mean major internal bleeding. A broken rib can make breathing painful. A broken arm can end a person's ability to carry, climb, throw, dig, scrape hides, gather food, or hold a child. A broken leg can turn a useful adult into someone who has to be fed and protected. An open fracture can invite infection into deep tissue. And infection, without antibiotics, can turn a local injury into a whole body crisis. Even if the skin stays closed, there is another problem. Movement. A mobile foraging group cannot always stay in one place because one person is injured. Food runs out, water sources dry up, weather shifts, herds move, a camp becomes dirty, firewood nearby disappears. Predators and scavengers learn patterns. The landscape keeps making demands, whether your bone is ready or not. So yes, a serious broken bone could kill you without ever needing to be dramatic. It could kill quietly. You cannot walk to water. You cannot keep up. You cannot gather enough food. You shiver through a cold night because you cannot collect fuel. You develop a fever. You are left exposed while others hunt or forage. The group has to choose between staying too long and moving too soon. That is the harsh version, and it matters. Because if we skip it, we turn ancient survival into a cozy story about campfires and handmade splints. It was not cozy. A broken bone could mean the end of a life. But the archaeological record gives us a second image. Not only the person who died, also the person who lived long enough for bone to repair. When living bone breaks, the body does not simply glue the pieces back together like a repaired bowl. It responds. Blood clots form around the fracture. Cells clean damaged tissue. New tissue begins to bridge the gap. Over time, a hard callus can form around the broken area, like a rough biological scaffold. Later, that callus is remodeled. The shape may become smoother. The bone may strengthen. If the pieces were badly aligned, the healed bone may stay crooked. For archaeologists, that healing matters. A clean break in an ancient skeleton might have happened long after death, when soil pressure, excavation, roots, or erosion damaged the remains. But a healed fracture is different. Healing is something a living body does. A callus means the person survived for some time after the injury. It does not tell us everything. It does not tell us who held their hand. It does not tell us whether someone sang to them. It does not tell us whether the group acted out of love, duty, kinship, practical calculation, social obligation, or all of those tangled together. But it does tell us this. The person was not instantly erased by the injury. They lived into the repair, and that creates a much deeper puzzle because bones heal inside bodies, but bodies survive inside communities. Imagine an injured person lying near a fire. Not a heroic warrior scene, not a movie moment, just a human body in pain, trying not to move. Someone has to bring water. Someone has to bring food. Someone has to keep the fire going. Someone may have to help them urinate or move away from waste. Someone may have to watch swelling, clean dirt from a wound, wrap the limb, or keep children from bumping into it. If the group moves, someone has to decide whether the injured person can be helped, carried, supported with a branch, or left at a temporary camp with others. This is the part that modern people sometimes miss. A broken bone is not only a medical event, it is a logistical event. Today, logistics are hidden inside institutions. The ambulance driver, radiologist, nurse, surgeon, pharmacist, insurance form, elevator, wheelchair ramp, and delivery app all form a web around the injured body. You may complain about the paperwork, which is fair, because paperwork is one of the strangest predators of modern life, but the web is there. In the Stone Age, that web was made of people. A child carrying water in a skin or container, an adult returning with meat already divided, someone gathering fuel, someone remembering where softer ground lies if the group must move, someone making a splint from straight sticks, strips of hide, plant fiber, bark, or whatever the local world offers, someone keeping watch while the injured person sleeps. None of this required modern anatomy textbooks. People can learn a great deal from bodies, animals, repeated accidents, and generations of trial and error. If a limb moves and the person screams, you learn to keep it still. If a wound fills with dirt and smells worse, you learn that dirt is dangerous. If one kind of plant soothes pain or swelling, people may remember it. If a crooked limb never works the same again, people may try harder next time to hold it straighter. But we have to be careful. We should not imagine one universal Stone Age hospital system. There was no single Stone Age culture. People lived across different climates, landscapes, tool traditions, group sizes, and time periods. Some groups had more resources, some had less. Some injuries happened in forgiving seasons, others happened in the worst possible week of the year. Still, the basic biology does not change. To heal, the body needs time, energy, protection, and reduced movement. And in a mobile foraging world, those things were expensive. That is the survival calculation. If one injured adult cannot walk, the group may lose a hunter, gatherer, toolmaker, carrier, caregiver, or defender. If others help, they spend time and calories. If they slow down, they risk missing food opportunities. If they stay in one place, they may exhaust local resources. If they carry the injured person, they cannot carry something else. If they leave people behind to care for them, the group divides its strength. This is where the old cartoon version of prehistoric life falls apart. The simple cartoon says ancient survival was about the toughest individual, the strongest hunter, the fastest runner, the person with the biggest club and the least complicated feelings. But a broken bone exposes the weakness of that idea. No amount of personal toughness lets you sprint on a snapped leg. No amount of pride cooks food when you cannot stand. No amount of ancient grit turns dirty tissue sterile. Pain tolerance is not a transportation system. The deeper survival system was social, not soft, not sentimental in the modern greeting card sense. Social in the hard survival sense. Who owes whom help? Who has helped before? Who has knowledge that must not be lost? Who is kin? Who can still watch children? Shape tools. Tell where animals move after rain. Remember a safe crossing. Recognize a poisonous plant or keep a fire alive through the night. An injured person might not be useless. That is a modern mistake, and maybe an ancient one too. depending on the group and the crisis. A person who cannot walk far may still know where to find water in a dry season. They may know how to repair a spear point. They may calm children. They may remember stories of dangerous places. They may teach. They may make cordage, scrape hides, tend fire, sort plants, prepare food, or simply remain someone loved. And even if they cannot contribute much right now, there is another logic. One day, the helper may be the injured one. In small groups, survival is full of delayed exchanges. You share meat today because tomorrow your hunt may fail. You carry a child today because later someone carries yours. You care for a person with a broken leg because next season a branch may fall on you, or your child may burn a hand, or your sister may develop a fever. Human beings are not the only social animals, but humans push social dependence to an extraordinary level. Our children are helpless for a long time. Our knowledge is learned slowly. Our food often requires tools, teaching, sharing, and cooperation. Our survival has always been bigger than one body. That is why a healed prehistoric injury can feel so powerful. It is bone evidence, but it points beyond bone. One famous kind of example comes from Neanderthal remains. Neanderthals lived dangerous physical lives, and their skeletons often show trauma. Some individuals show healed injuries that would have caused pain, reduced mobility, or long-term impairment. Shanidar I from Shanidar Cave in Iraq is often discussed because he appears to have lived with multiple serious impairments, including injuries and conditions affecting his arm, vision, hearing, and movement. Exactly how we interpret his life is debated, and we should not turn him into a simple inspirational poster from the deep past. But the broad point remains striking. Here was not a perfect body untouched by hardship. Here was a damaged body that kept living. Other Neanderthal finds, including remains from places like Krapina, have been discussed in relation to healed fractures and trauma. Some injuries may have limited movement for weeks or months. Some may have healed badly. Some may suggest that injured individuals survived long enough for the body to repair at least part of the damage. Again, caution matters. A healed fracture does not prove a warm family scene around the fire. It does not prove modern-style medicine. It does not prove that every injured person was supported. But it does suggest that survival after injury was possible, and sometimes survival would have been very difficult without help. Then there are even more dramatic cases. On the island of Borneo, researchers reported a roughly 31,000-year-old skeleton missing part of the lower left leg and foot. The bones showed signs that the person survived for years after the loss. The interpretation is that this may represent surgical amputation, which, if correct, would be an astonishing sign of anatomical knowledge, wound management, and long-term care in a prehistoric community. But even here, the most interesting part is not just the cut. It is the after. Surviving the immediate event is one thing. Surviving years afterward, in a rugged landscape, with altered mobility, is another. Someone with a missing foot would have faced daily challenges. Moving through forest, slopes, wet ground, or sharp rock would be harder. Hunting, carrying, climbing, and escaping danger could change completely. So the skeleton does not only ask, could ancient people perform a medical procedure? It asks, what kind of group allows a person with a major impairment to keep living? That question brings us back to the broken bone. What could people actually do? Probably more than the old stereotype allows, and less than a modern fantasy might hope. If the fracture was closed, meaning the bone broke but did not pierce the skin, the best chance might be immobilization. Keep the limb still, use straight supports. Wrap them tightly enough to reduce movement, but not so tightly that the limb is damaged. Rest. Feed the person. Keep them warm. Wait. If the fracture was open, everything became much more dangerous. Dirt, bacteria, splinters, animal contact, flies, and repeated movement could turn the wound into infection. People might rinse wounds, remove visible debris, cover the area, use plant materials, smoke, fat, hide, moss, bark, sarangi, or fiber, depending on what they knew and had available. Some plants can reduce pain or inflammation. Some substances may discourage insects. Some traditional wound practices in many cultures show careful observation of what helps and what harms. But the word is might. We cannot casually hand every Stone Age group a perfect medicine kit. There were no antibiotics in the modern sense, no germ theory as we understand it, no stainless steel pins, no sterile surgical suite, no reliable anesthesia. Severe fractures could still become infected, heal crooked, or kill. Even a well-splinted bone could fail to align. Even a closed fracture could produce months of pain. A person might survive but never move the same way again. Survival was not the same as recovery. Imagine the bone heals, but badly. The leg is shorter now, the arm does not rotate right, the wrist aches in cold weather, the rib healed but breathing deeply still hurts. The person walks with a branch as a crutch. They fall behind when the group travels. Children learn to slow down near them. Someone else carries what they used to carry. The injured person finds new tasks near the fire. This is not a neat ending. It is a human one. Prehistoric life was full of these compromises. A solution did not have to restore someone to perfect health. It had to keep them alive enough, mobile enough, useful enough, connected enough. Ancient survival was rarely clean. It was a chain of good enough decisions made under pressure. Stay one more day, move at dawn, carry less meat, send 2 people ahead, make a support, share the food, watch the wound, try not to let the fire die. And this is where the broken bone stops being only an injury story. It becomes a story about the first safety net, not a safety net made of laws, hospitals, elevators, insurance cards, and emergency numbers. Those are modern, and they are remarkable. If you break a bone today, modern medicine can do things ancient people could not even imagine. It can see inside the body, rebuild joints, clean wounds, replace blood, fight infection, and hold shattered bone with metal. That is not small. But underneath the modern system is an older truth. When a human body fails, another human has to respond. The tools have changed, the buildings have changed, the language has changed, the paperwork has definitely changed, and somehow multiplied in the dark. But the basic crisis is ancient. Someone cannot stand, someone else comes closer. That may be one of the most important facts about our species. We are not built like solitary predators that can disappear into the brush and heal alone. We are slow-growing, long-learning, injury-prone animals with big brains, fragile children, complicated births, and bodies that can be stopped by one bad fall. Our strength was never only in muscle. It was in shared attention. Notice the injury. Remember what worked last time. Bring water. Hold the limb. Wait through the fever. Feed the person who cannot feed themselves. Carry knowledge across generations. This does not mean prehistoric people were gentle all the time. They were human. They could be frightened, hungry, angry, exhausted, practical, loving, cruel, generous, or desperate. A group under starvation pressure might make very different choices from a group in a rich season. A stranger might be treated differently from a close relative. A minor fracture might be manageable. A shattered, infected leg might be impossible. But the existence of healed injuries tells us something simple and difficult to ignore. At least sometimes, people stayed alive after their bodies broke. And for many serious injuries, that survival probably required more than toughness. It required a camp that adjusted itself around weakness. That is the reversal. The Stone Age was not survived by people who never needed help. It was survived by people who had systems for needing help. So return to that modern slip on the wet step. You hear the crack, you reach for your phone, maybe you are scared, maybe you are embarrassed, maybe your first thought is not noble or philosophical, but something like, please do not let anyone have seen that extremely undignified landing. Then help begins to arrive. A voice, a hand, a vehicle, a room full of light, a scan of your bone, a cast, a schedule, someone telling you not to put weight on it, which you immediately try to negotiate with, because humans have been bad at resting for a very long time. It all feels modern, and it is, but the deeper pattern is older than the hospital. Long before X-rays, someone saw another person on the ground and had to decide what happened next. Long before casts, someone tried to hold a limb still. Long before antibiotics, someone worried over a wound. Long before emergency rooms, a small circle of people had to absorb the cost of one broken body. Maybe they failed. Often, they probably did. But sometimes, the bone healed. And when it did, it left behind more than a mark of injury. It left behind a quiet record of time, food, protection, patience, and other people. That is what a broken bone in the Stone Age really reveals. Not that ancient humans were invincible, the opposite. They were breakable. And because they were breakable, they had to become social. But a broken bone is at least visible. People can see the bent limb, the swelling, the limp, the wound. So what happened when the danger was hidden inside the body? What did ancient humans do when the threat was fever, infection, or a toothache deep enough to make sleep impossible?